I want to point out willow. So I spent a long time talking about willow in one of the Materia Medicas. This is one of the many willows here. This is a Salix species, and then right over here is a different Salix species, so a different kind of willow. If you looked at the flowers, you can actually see it's post-flower. It's now going to fruit on both of them, and they're pretty easy to tell that they're at least different once you know how to identify plants well. And what I'd like to do is show people how to take the bark off of willow. I'm not sure how well this will go. It's not the best time of year to do it, but here we are with the camera. And the nice thing about doing something spontaneously is if it doesn't work, you won't feel bad when you try it and it doesn't work for you, as opposed to having everything prepared already. So I cut the stem. Willow, by the way, you can just keep cutting. You can see this gets cut a lot because it's in the driveway. But the plant breaks and regrows easy. So what I'm going to do now is, just for the convenience of this, I'm just going to cut off some of the branches. So now I have a willow stem. And there's a bunch of ways of doing this, but I'll do it the most dangerous way, which is I'll open my knife and I will cut towards my heart. No, I'll just cut right over here. So basically I'm going to make an incision. Don't do it this way unless you know how to use a knife well. And the knife is just going through the outer bark, through the inner bark, and into the heartwood. You can actually see right here, this white part is the this white part is the heartwood. This green part right over there, that's the inner bark, and then you can't barely see it, but the most outer layer, you need a real good close-up, this most outer gray layer, that's the outer bark. To show it differently, by the way, I'm just going to scrape a little outer bark off. So if I go like this, and you see that green underneath, so the gray is the outer bark, and this green is the inner bark. So what I'm going to do now is see if I can easily peel it off. So I've made this incision. Oh, it's going to work great. All right. Watch this. So all I'm doing nothing special. There's no planning here. The apprentices are not behind me setting this up. I'm going to just slip there's the heartwood. So you can make juggling sticks if you get big pieces. That's pretty, it's not really exactly inert material, but it's not much for medicine. And then over here, this is the part that you want. The part that you don't want, but you can leave it in, is this very outer bark. Once again, you can see where I scrape it off. But the outer bark is such an insignificant portion here, and it's inert, meaning not toxic and not a problem anyway. You can just leave it on. So in just seconds, I've just made this big willow quill that I can boil or tincture or make medicine out of. You could actually just chew it up as an anti-inflammatory. I don't know if you've ever thought about what a cinnamon quill is, but a cinnamon quill is the same thing. It's a tree where they do this, and then it just curls up like that. So you can imagine this is a willow quill rather than a cinnamon quill. So I hope folks have gotten a good idea of that you could easily make your own bark medicine, especially when you know the best times to gather it.
If you were to dry it, would you store it whole like that?
No, I would cut it into smaller pieces. If I dried it, I would basically cut pieces like this off and dry them. And the reason is it just makes it easier to process later. Right. Some plants like willow are much easier to process when they're fresh. Some plants are easier dry, but willow is easier to process, meaning cutting up when it's fresh. And so that was willow. Over here, by the way, is the school parking lot. If you ever decide to go to this school, this is where you will park your cars. Not the most exciting part.